Hey everybody, I'm Joe, and we're doing another character build for the Marvel Multiverse TTRPG today as of Rules Update 1.3. Here we go. As I always say, we are doing these character builds as of Rules Update 1.3, and if we need to do any modifications to this character based on rules changes when the game is formally published later this year, then we'll do a video to address that. So what power set do you think is going to be the least utilized by players in Marvel Multiverse? Well, I had my thoughts on this question, but we actually know Marvel's thought process on this, and they believe it is the Firearms power set. Specifically, they even state in the opening to describing that power set that most superheroes do not use firearms because they don't want to use lethal damage. But there are reasons that we absolutely should still be conversant with this power set. First of all, it is a legitimate power set that you can take. Second of all, it actually has some amazing potential inside of it. And thirdly, if you are a narrator, your villains probably are going to be utilizing the Firearms power set. I'll even go so far as to say that I avoided digging into the Firearms power set for a couple reasons. The first being that I didn't feel that using firearms fit with some of the themes of superheroes I wanted to build. Secondly, the way the firearms are presented initially in the playtest rulebook are a little confusing. However, it is a legitimate power set to take, and the rules for damage multipliers with weapons have been substantially cleaned up and streamlined in subsequent rules updates. So I set out this week to build a character predominantly using the Firearms power set to see how good it is. And I actually gave myself one additional challenge, which for me at least was a pretty big one to tackle. I decided to build a character that did not take combat trickery. I've said many times that I believe this is the most powerful thing in the game, and it is. And I wanted to see how good I could make something if I didn't take it, and if I could build a character that didn't need it for purposes of spiking damage. And we did a really reasonable job, but along the way something very strange happened. The first way that you can build a character in the Firearms power set is to go after making attacks on your turn at every single enemy that is within a 50-foot range. I found that the language of the powers specifically indicated a 50-foot range, not the range of your weapon, but 50 feet is still very reasonable, and this is a good and legitimate way to build a character. But it's not, to my mind, the best thing you can do in the Firearms power set. No, the best thing you can do in the Firearms power set, and this thematically makes a lot of sense, is to be able to attack an insane number of times on your turn and as a reaction on other people's turns. And this brought to mind, of course, the character that we made very recently, the Honey Badger. When I made that character, I thought that I was making the character that best utilized the potential in Marvel Multiverse to have multiple reactions on a given round of combat. And we wound up with a character that made 4 attacks throughout an entire round, which I had thought was really good. That feeling lasted for a week. With the character we're making today, she is able to utilize throughout her turn and throughout her reactions upwards of 7 attacks. And so my feeling from last week that I had really well utilized multiple reactions has already been overcome. And for that reason, and for other thematically obvious reasons, I don't know what name you want to give to this character, but I'll be calling her Retort. Let's do a small caveat before I begin the build, and let's talk about ability score cap increases. I did a video recently where I talked about how when you go into a new power set, you're supposed to get a bump to the ability score cap of 1 or 2 different abilities. Not only that, but I haven't dealt with ability score cap increases very much in my builds. But I want to do that because increasing ability score caps is a part of the game, and if the ability score cap increases from new power sets has not been altered in rules updates, and as of rules update 1.3 it has not been, then this is a part of the game. But as I stated in that video, the numerical value that is from the playtest rulebook no longer makes mathematical sense. It increases your cap by 6, and this is way too much for the new ability score cap numbers. So I've decided in this video, and probably in subsequent ones until we have a formal ruling from Marvel, that when I go into a new power set, the ability score cap increases bump those ability scores by a +1. I think that this is reasonable and fair, and if anything, it is conservative relative to the value we might get in the final game. So that means that as long as ability score cap increases maintain when you go into new power sets in the future, this character will at least be accurate to the future game mechanics, if not more conservative than you would otherwise get. And I've decided to take this very restrained approach on going into additional power sets. The way that the rulebook discusses ability score cap increases and power sets, whenever you go into a new power set, you get the ability score cap increases that are associated, and all ability score cap increases are merely additive to ones you have had before, not a replacement thereof. So the way that the rulebook indicates, if you have a character from rank 1 through 6 who goes into a new power set with every rank, you receive 6 ability score cap increases, which is really cool. But I've decided to be very conservative on this point. With this character and with other ones I do until I see the formal ruling on ability score cap increases and power sets from Marvel, I will only be taking the ability score cap increase from the first power set I go into. And if I get ability score cap increases from other places, I will add those as well. We will be doing this on this character. Therefore, if anything, when the final game comes out, you'd be able to cap your ability score increases at a higher number than we have done. So we would be more restrained. I think this is a fair way to do the build while the game is in playtesting. With all of that said, let's do rank 1. We're an average sized character with 25 feet of movement speed. We're going to take a -4 in our melee, which is going to give us 9 ability points to spend. And we're going to buy our way at rank 1 into the Firearms power set. Now the Firearms power set increases your cap for agility and vigilance, and it also indicates that if you wanted to, you could make your attacks using your vigilance score rather than agility. And there are reasons you might do one or the other. Attacking with vigilance would be amazing, because when you attack with vigilance, you are going to bump your vigilance score more than any other. And your vigilance score is also what fuels your focus and your initiative rolls. This is one of the things I really like about this game, that your initiative rolls are based on your vigilance of the situation around you. So a character that attacks using vigilance is going to go early in combat. Not only that, but if you have powers fueled by focus, you will have the maximum amount of focus to spend on those powers. However, we're not going to do that. We will be attacking using agility, and we're going to have vigilance as a secondary or tertiary stat. The reason is a couple-fold. The first is there are some powers in the Firearms power set that specifically state you make an attack using agility. And because the power states that, if you wanted to take it, you would have to have 2 different attack stats, and one of them would be inferior to the other. I don't like that. The second reason we are going to attack using agility is that we have the ability to take a power that uses our agility defense for our melee defense, but we don't have an equivalent power with vigilance, and so we would never have the defense to melee that we can have on this character. Lastly is movement speed. When you have a character with an additional 5 points of agility, it adds 5 feet of movement speed. And we want that, so this character will be able to reposition. Right away at rank 1, my ability score cap for agility is a 5, not a 4. Normally it is 3 plus your rank, but we have an additional +1 to our cap because we are in the Firearms power set. Because I have taken a -4 in my melee stat, I have 9 points to spend. So we're going to put 5 into agility, capping it there, put 2 into resilience for 50 points of health, and put 2 into vigilance, which is going to give us 50 points of focus and a +2 to our initiative. This is going to give us defenses of 6 for melee, 15 for agility, 12s for resilience and vigilance, and 10s for ego and logic. The first power we're going to take is Double Tap, which allows you to make a ranged attack against an enemy within 10 feet. We would still be able to fire our weapon at people farther away than 10 feet, but this just specifically allows us to shoot them if they are closer. There's no particularly special additional effects that happen with Double Tap, but it's a necessity to get powers we want later. The other power we're going to take is Suppressive Fire. We make an agility-based attack against the ego defense of a particular target. We do half damage on a normal success, and we do full damage on a fantastic success. Here's where it gets interesting. If we do any points of focus damage, the enemy will be stunned for 1 round. How do you do focus damage? Well, focus damage happens automatically with a fantastic success. We haven't talked about this much on this channel, but mostly because I haven't built a character around this mechanic, but it is there. So there is a possibility of stunning an enemy. If it's a fantastic success, they also drop prone. The last power we are going to take is going to be Point Blank Parry. If an enemy misses us with an attack within 10 feet, we can utilize our reaction to attack them for normal damage on a normal success and double damage on a fantastic success. Please remember that Retaliate is a power every character gets as a reaction. So if somebody targets us and misses, we get to do Point Blank Parry. If they target us and hit, we get to do Retaliate. Let's take a second and talk about this 10-foot distance. It is not going to be important later in our character's career, but for right now, we are actually relying for 2 different powers on being within 10 feet of an enemy. And so your movement is going to be basically to get into the center of combat. Later on, we'll be able to operate from farther away. Now, we're going to be utilizing a lot of reactions on this character, and so I will be assuming that you do actually get to utilize either Point Blank Parry from being within 10 feet or Retaliate from being hit from any distance. I understand that this will not always be the case. Since this is a character that is going to rely heavily on additional reactions, we're going to take Combat Reflexes right away at rank 1. I'm taking it right away because we have a reaction power that we can utilize now at rank 1. So when we get into combat, I will be assuming we get to utilize both reactions. The better damage numbers are going to come from using our Double Tap power. And so if you want to use Suppressive Fire in order to attempt to stun enemies, that is a completely valid way of operating. But for us, we're going to assume at rank 1 that we're going to use Double Tap and 2 Point Blank Parry reactions. And that means we're going to do a total of 36 damage per round of combat. In order to talk about the point buy at rank 2, I need to talk about the trait we're going to take, which is Enhanced Physique. Enhanced Physique has been updated in rules updates and stipulates that our ability score cap is increased by a +1 for all physical traits, which is going to be our melee, our agility, and our resilience. We are only going to be using the agility cap increase, which now means that our agility cap is 2 over what it normally would be. This will allow us to bring our agility to a 7, our resilience and our vigilance to a 3, and our ego to a 1. You can build this character with bringing up either your ego or your logic scores. I'm going with ego in order to make a character that has good persuasion checks outside of combat, but build the character however you want. Our defenses are eventually going to be 17s for melee and agility, 13s for resilience and vigilance, and an 11 for ego and a 10 for logic. But let's talk about how I got that 17 defense for melee. Naturally, I have to take evasion on this character, and that is the power that's going to bring our melee defense to be equal to our agility defense. The power we are going to absolutely love on this character is Stopping Power. So Stopping Power allows us to make a ranged attack at an enemy doing normal amounts of damage as you would expect. However, if you do at least 1 point of damage with your first attack, you can spend 10 points of focus and attack them again. This is one of the few ways in the game to have a true and legitimate multi-attack against the same target for full damage. And we can do it so long as we have focus to spend. We have 75 points of focus, so we can do this 7 times. And 7 rounds of combat is pretty long for a full day. And now we get to take one of the coolest reaction powers in the game, which is Return Fire. Return Fire is triggered by, and this is interesting, an enemy declaring an attack against the character, not having made the attack. And so we get to respond to an attack now before it happens. And the triggering event is very important for our reactions, because the same event cannot trigger multiple reactions. You only respond to one thing at a time. So with Return Fire, someone declares an attack on us, we make an attack against them for half damage on a normal success and full damage on a fantastic success. If they take any focus damage, they are also stunned, which would of course end their ability to complete the attack. But please note that our Retaliate ability and point blank parry reactions are triggered when the attack is concluded, meaning that one person triggering us with an attack will be able to trigger 2 different reactions, one before the attack is made and one afterwards. The last power we are going to take is going to be Healing Factor, a utility power that automatically heals us by our resilience modifier every round of combat. You don't have to do anything, it just automatically works. If you wanted to take Wisdom at this particular rank and take Healing Factor later, that's also a completely legitimate choice. We're going to be taking Wisdom next rank, and this allows us to have our ego defense be used for our logic defense score. And right now that's only a difference of a 1, so I decided to take the healing right away, but if you took it the other direction, I would totally understand. So for combat, we get to make 2 attacks with Stopping Power and 2 reactions using Return Fire, and this is going to give us a total damage output per round of combat of 50 points on the board. At rank 3, we get to bring our agility to an 8, our resilience to a 5, we're going to bring our vigilance to a 4, and our ego to a 2. Our defenses are going to be 18 for melee and agility, 15 for resilience, 14 for vigilance, 12 for ego, and it's going to be 12 for logic because we will be taking wisdom at this rank. We will have 125 points of health, 100 points of focus. Our healing factor will be 5 points per round, and our initiative modifier is going to be a +4. The first power we're going to take is going to be Wisdom, which allows us to use our ego defense for our logic defense, and that's just going to shore up our defenses as we move forward with this character. The next power we're going to take is Headshot. This is one I'm not counting on using on this character. I'm only taking it because it's a prerequisite for something we need at next rank. But there is something interesting here, and there is a way of building a character around this power. With Headshot, you make an attack with trouble at an enemy. If you succeed, it is double damage. If you get a fantastic success, it's triple damage, and they are stunned for 1 round. This is one of the few ways of getting triple damage in the game. And there's a build with stacking up an edge on Headshot to negate the trouble and using combat trickery to guarantee triple damage. One day I will build that character, but this is not that day. And now we're going to take one of the most important powers for this character, Fast Hands. Fast Hands simply grants us 1 additional reaction so long as it is for a power that is in the Firearms power set. And boy, are we going to be using that. We now have 3 reactions per round of combat. We have been working with a +1 modifier for the last 2 ranks, but no more, because we are going to use a hack that I talked about in a video I made about the most overpowered stuff in the game, but it's still as rules as written because we're going to take attack stance. Now, attack stance is in the martial arts power set, so we're going to take as our trait for this rank surprising power, which allows us to take a power we would not normally be able to take. Attack stance has no prerequisites except for being in the martial arts power set, and so I will be using surprising trait to bypass being in the martial arts power set and take attack stance here. Attack stance replaces all damage multipliers and simply doubles your rank for the purposes of calculating damage, which is as good, if not better, than any other way of spiking damage in the game. So for combat, we're going to use stopping power for 2 full attacks, expending focus in order to do so, and we'll be able to have 3 reactions per round of combat. I will assume they are all for return fire, and so they will all be at half damage. But one of them could be retaliate for full damage, so you might do even better than this. But with the assumptions I've made, you'll still be doing 72 points of damage per round of combat. Rank 4 is where it all comes together. We're going to bring agility to a 9, resilience to a 6, vigilance to a 5, ego to a 4. This is going to give us defenses of 19 for melee and agility, 16 for resilience, 15 for vigilance, and 14 for ego and logic. We will have 150 points of health and a +6 for our healing factor every round, and we're going to have 125 points of focus to expend as we are going through a round of combat with a +5 to our initiative modifier. At this rank, we will be buying our way into a new power set, and we're going to go into Cybernetics. Now, we're going to be using more of this power set as we go along, but right now I'm going to take Armor 1 and 2, which is going to give us a 2 damage reduction. That's always super useful. And now we're going to take the single best reaction power in the entire game, and that is Kill Zone. So how does Kill Zone work? When an enemy begins his or her turn within your line of sight, they don't have to have done anything yet, they just begin their turn, you get to utilize your reaction in order to make an attack against them. This is a full attack, normal damage on normal success, double damage on a fantastic success, and the triggering event is just them beginning a turn. And it gets even better. Upon utilizing your reaction for Kill Zone, that reaction resets. Meaning, since it resets every single turn, you can use Kill Zone at the beginning of every enemy's turn. The other thing to keep in mind is that we can only respond to one triggering event with one reaction. Kill Zone triggers at the beginning of a creature's turn. Return fire triggers when they declare an attack. Point blank parry and retaliate are triggered at the end of that attack. So this means we can utilize all of our reactions throughout a round of combat, but you can only use Kill Zone as one of your reactions. The reason why is it stipulates that an enemy can only be affected by the Kill Zone reaction once per round of combat. We always assume with multi-target damage characters that we are attacking 3 valid targets. So I will be calculating Kill Zone as 3 attacks. If you have more enemy combatants that are on the field, you'll be attacking more often. At this rank, we are going to take as our trait Signature Attack. I've been delaying taking it because I want Signature Attack on Kill Zone. Every one of the attacks you make is a different roll. So I very much want all of those rolls to have an edge, and this is how we get it. This means with combat, we get to make 2 attacks with stopping power, 3 attacks with Kill Zone, and have 2 reactions left over, which I'll be calculating as being used by return fire for half damage on each one. This brings our damage per round of combat from 72, last rank, to 222 points of damage on the board every round of combat. At rank 5, I will be taking a power that increases my agility cap once again. And I need to mention that now for point buy, because we will be able to get our agility to an 11, our resilience to an 8, vigilance to a 7, ego to a 6. This will give us defenses of, and this is going to be interesting, 23 for melee and agility. I'll explain how we get there. 18 for resilience, 17 for vigilance, and 16 for ego and logic. This is going to give us 8 points of health from healing factor every round with 200 hit points. We're going to have 175 points of focus to expend for stopping power, and we're going to have an initiative modifier of 7. Let's get the boring powers out of the way. First, we're going to take from Cybernetics the armor 3 and 4 powers. We now have a 4 damage reduction. So even if someone hits us, which is pretty difficult to do, we are still going to be reducing that damage substantively. And now I'm going to take a power that I said in a previous video was actually one of my least favorites, and that is Lock On. Here is the problem with Lock On and why I am taking it on this character. I am making an assumption. Lock On originally was an easy action that gave you an edge against a target, and this power is maintained, meaning you only need to utilize it once in order to have an edge on a target until you switch your Lock On power to someone else, lose concentration, or the enemy dies. Now, easy actions were removed from the game, and the instructions that were in the rules update stipulated that if something was an easy action, if it truly was easy, it would be given to you for free, but it's up to the narrator's discretion if it now took an action to perform. If your narrator rules that Lock On takes an action, not an easy action or a free action to use, then this is not a valid way to go. It is a bad power to take. However, if your narrator stipulates that this was an easy action and at rank 5 taking it, it is now free, then it is absolutely worth doing. And this just generates an edge against a single target until you change it. And I would definitely want this power in that case. So you have to check with your narrator to see if this power is worth taking. And now we come to the really important power at this rank, and that is Augmented Reflexes from the Cybernetics power set. We get several features from the Augmented Reflexes power. First, we increase our cap for agility, which I'm assuming is being increased by a +1. The second thing we get is an edge on initiative checks, which we already had a +7 on, great. And the last thing that we get is an increase of our agility defense by a +2. This is why our agility defense is different than you would estimate looking at our agility actual score. What trait are we going to take at this rank? I'm going to take Situational Awareness, which gives us an edge on our initiative checks. Here's what's fun. Edges in trouble do stack. And so you can build up an edge from different places on one particular thing, be it an attack roll or a check of some kind. And as a result, we now get a +7 to our initiative rolls, and we get a double edge. You will be going versed in combat almost always. As for that combat, we're going to use stopping power twice, kill zone for 3 attacks, and return fire with our additional 2 reactions. And this is going to give us 276 points of damage on the board every round of combat. Let's finish up this character at rank 6. We're going to get agility to a 12, resilience at an 8, vigilance at a 7, ego at a 6. And this is going to give us defenses of 24 for melee and agility, 18 for resilience, 17 for vigilance, 16 for ego, and 16 for logic. At this rank, we are going to go into a new power set. We're going to go into martial arts. Now, this might seem weird because we took attack stance earlier in the character's career, and we did it through using surprising power in order to get around to going into the martial arts power set. But that was because I wanted to prioritize firearms powers earlier on. If you wanted to shuffle things around and get the martial arts power set earlier, you could do so and save yourself 1 trait. What I would do is take Signature Weapon. Signature Weapon normally grants you a damage multiplier, but we wouldn't want that on this character. Instead, all I would ask for with Signature Weapon is an edge when attacking with this particular weapon. That's it. And in exchange for a full trait, I think any narrator would go for that. The first power we're going to take at rank 6 is going to be Anti-Dazzle Optics, and this just means that excessive light cannot blind or dazzle us. It's kind of a ribbon feature at this point, but it might come up The next power we're going to take is Do This All Day. You know it, you love it. We get to expend focus to heal health at a 2-for-1 discount. We're doing this for the next power we're going to take. The next power we're going to take is Brace for Impact. This utilizes one of our 3 reactions in order to reduce damage coming in by expending focus on a 1-for-1 basis. I still get my action and I still get 2 reactions if I do this, so it seems to me to be a really good power for us to take. What trait are we going to take at rank 6? I don't really have an opinion. This is taster's choice. Take something that seems flavorful and fun for you. And for damage at rank 6, we're going to use Stopping Power for 2 attacks, Kill Zone for 3, and Return Fire for 2 additional attacks, assuming we have not used Brace for Impact to utilize our reaction to reduce damage. But if we get to do all of that, we will do 324 damage per round of combat. And we did it without taking combat trickery. So the real question before us is this character more powerful if she took combat trickery? And the answer is yes. Of course. Of course. Combat trickery spikes the damage on any character. And if we have a fantastic success, and we didn't emphasize this, we are stunning our enemies regularly. And with 7 attacks, and there's many ways we can grant ourselves an edge on those attacks, we're going to be stunning enemies regularly. So combat trickery would be great, but even without it, we are attacking an unimaginable number of times. It's honestly going to be annoying for your narrator that every enemy begins a turn by getting shot. They start attacking somebody, they get shot. They finish attacking somebody, they get shot. This is a really fun character to play, and all the while you have insane agility. We get to a point on this character where we have 35 feet of movement speed, and we are going to basically be deadly from almost any distance away. We also didn't mention different weapons. We're able to take a variety of different weapons in order to attack perhaps multiple targets, perhaps use frag grenades, work at various distances. There's no reason by later on this character's career you don't have handguns for short distances, a rifle for long distances, a shotgun for hitting multiple targets. You have a variety of ways to attack with this character, and they're all valid, and we didn't even build for it. So yeah, the Firearms power set is amazing. We get some great reaction abilities. We get the ability to attack a ridiculous number of times, which feels thematic on the character. And we can spread those attacks over a wide variety of targets. So this character is wonderful in a campaign that deals with lots of minions. Anyway, that's the build for the week. I hope you enjoyed it. YouTube is literally made out of buttons. I hope you press some of them, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye.